just 2 paragraphs of the story because we are already far behind time. Nigeria state oil firm Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation, that is the NNPC Limited, on Wednesday hiked petrol prices to as high as 557 naira, that is $1.21 per liter, from 189 naira, days after new President Bola Tinubu said fuel subsidies would be scrapped. The increase signals an end to the fuel subsidy regime that the NNPC says cost it 867 million every month. Nigerians will have to brace for higher transport fares, while businesses which rely on petrol generators because the electricity supply is meager face higher costs. So this is where I end it. I'll leave the rest to my panel to do justice to this particular story. But it is clear Nigeria spends over $10 billion each year on fuel subsidy. The current president is not excited about it. He has decided to remove those subsidies. Honorable Atabwade will start the conversation, would find out his thoughts on this particular subject matter. Honorable.
Yes, Bless, good morning once again, and good morning to our viewers. It's been some time that I've not come on your program, and people all over the country, they've been asking why I've been absent. I think today is the day that I've appeared, and I hope to continue to come onto the program. That tells you how people cherished what we do here, and the fact that Pan-African TV is being watched very well, especially in the north. Not even just in the north, I think Ghana as a whole. Why? Because we do go to other stations, but when they see, they say that they saw you on Pan-African TV. Then you ask yourself, is it the only TV you have been appearing? So I think that you are doing a spectacular job, a job that the other stations have missed out. That is why people continue to ask. Fuel subsidies, taxes on fuel by our leaders in this part of the world. You see, it has become like a lazy way of taxing our people to fund government policies. And sometimes these taxes are not used for the purposes for which they tax the people, or the subsidies are removed to cure a problem, and then eventually the people become what? The brunt of it is on the people. Look at the case of Nigeria. In the current case where Tinubu is saying that he's going to remove subsidies. Subsidies were tried to be removed in the year 2012 in Nigeria, and it led to a lot of disturbances. As at that time, the current president was the opposition leader, and he kicked against it as at that time. Even when you read the story further, the story will tell you that he had promised that when he comes into power, he was going to maintain subsidies. How come that he just came? The first thing he has to do is to remove subsidies on fuel. And when you look at the economy in Nigeria, it's an economy that can do much more than just the removal of subsidies. Subsidies are for a purpose. You don't just put subsidies on a good for purposes of putting it there. It has a special role to play. It cushions a lot of social interventions, and so the Nigerian economy is one of the biggest, and beyond that, most people in Nigeria depends on the proceeds they get from using fuel to operate individual businesses. If you go to Nigeria, for instance, most of the generators are used by petrol and then diesel and so on. If you are going to remove subsidy, the consequences of such a removal will be that the prices of items will go up, the cost of doing business will go up. Ordinary people who are making income, the volumes of employment of people engaged in the fuel industry alone in Nigeria is a big deal. And the spillover to other parts of parts of West Africa is huge. Nigeria is a place that they should not be even talking about fuel shortages, removal of fuel subsidies. I think that these are the promises of some politicians. Tinubu should know better, looking at his age, his experience in the Nigerian politics, the politics of fuel in Nigeria, and so on. Energy in Nigeria is not in itself stable. I think they should rather take advantage of the investment done by Dangote Group in terms of oil refinery, because it is projected that they are going to rake in more than $20 billion from that investment alone. I even wonder why it took a Dangote Group to establish. Nigeria should have established this fuel refinery long time ago, and they should have even been supplying fuel. Our tour here should have been complementary to that. Now we have a country that has produced oil over decades. They don't have a refinery. Even the refineries, when they are there, they are not properly used. The corruption
He can represent Africa national community if stubbornness becomes a competition. You see, he announced a reduction in fuel, in fact, a scrubbing away of fuel subsidies actually on the very day he was sworn in as president, contrary to his own campaign promise that he was going to look at how they would further subsidize fuel in order to reduce the burden of citizens. And he is noted to have said that anytime fuel, there is a 1% increment in the prices of fuel and petroleum products, it results into over 50% of prices of goods and commodities because there are no price control measures in Nigeria. So people associate it to transport and traffic and what have you and just increase prices arbitrarily. And so this came as a lot of hope to industry and especially SMEs, you know, small, medium enterprises. So for him to have mastered the courage to actually scrap away these subsidies exactly on the day of his inauguration, for me, is striking. However, that gives us reason to think about a few issues. One, could it be that in his trip to London, where he went for pre-inauguration rest, he was on a short sabbatical to prepare for governance, and he had to go to London to take up that rest and that preparation. As to why that could not happen in Nigeria, I do not know. Could it be that some economic lessons were taught to his understanding that if he doesn't scrap subsidies on fuel commodities, the over 10 million they spend, you know, annually, 10 million United States dollars they spend annually, would result into a further collapse of the Nigerian industry or Nigerian financial sector? Because you would recall that ahead of the elections, there was a sudden change in, I think, denomination. So there was some sort of what appeared to be redenomination in Nigeria, whereupon the old currency was put to a halt suddenly, and there was a mad crash in banks. People could not have money to even go to markets. So it tells you that with all of these things, there is a hidden instability in the financial sector of Nigeria. And so if he is beginning to announce some of these things, we can only say that realities have started dawning on him away from, you know, the happenings of campaign platforms. And that should be a major lesson to us in Africa, African politics, where our leaders seem to have no research basis for the kind of campaign promises we make. Or even if we do, we probably think that it is the too much promises and in most cases exaggerated ambitions that will get the citizens to actually vote for us. So for me, it's a delicate issue. Let us not be too quick to judge Nigeria. Of course, we know this will bring a lot of hardship on the ordinary person, because at the end of the day, the trickle-down effect of whatever price consequences that will emerge from petroleum product and transport will affect industry, and that becomes a variable, an input variable to the determination of price. And profit in itself is also a function of revenue. And so businesses will ordinarily want to now increase prices so that that function will not result into a negative return in their books.
Right.
Now, it means then that Nigerians must brace for the worst. And what then it also means for the rest of the region, the sub-region, is the fact that Nigeria, which is controlling half of West Africa's land mass, and even in terms of population and economy, would now have issues with revenue that will actually further affect the operations of ECOWAS, to which it is a major contributor. You cannot end anything about petroleum in Nigeria without commending the Dangote Group for investing in excess of 19 billion United States dollars in the establishment of the Dangote refinery. If there is one problem why Africa is suffering, is because of the absence of refineries. despite the fact that we have geological evaluation reports indicate that there is huge oil and gas and other mineral deposits for commercial explorations in our part of the region. And so we explore these things, exploit them, and yet we have nothing in terms of profits coming from them. We still have to follow our brothers to Europe to buy fuel, refined fuel products. And you know what we do? We even settle for the cheapest. If you really understand the technicalities we go in for the cheapest. Daddy have been educating us on the various classifications of fuels and the stupidity in our inability to be able to go in for the best. I wouldn't go there. Maybe he will throw more light again on it today. Right. But I think that we should look at refineries, and we can have an oil or energy diplomacy in Africa, where if one country does not have the resources to build a refinery, we can actually form an economic bloc with a centralized oil refinery by the oil producing economies towards serving ourselves. We can do that. Then we can sell this crude on our terms. It's not compulsory to belong to what's the name? OPEC, the oil producing, and other enterprising, countries. We can do this. It comes to reasoning. When we admit and embrace common sense, I think that the best economic school is in the kitchen. Once you know how to manage things in the kitchen, you can manage an economy. Right. And this is what we must be looking out for.
Right.
Good luck, and let's pray for Ghana, because the worst of what is happening now in subsidies will happen in Ghana with this IMF conditionality.
Right. Yeah. Thank you so much, Elvis. Let me come to Comrade Kwesi Pratt.
Well, Nigeria typifies the African paradox. Enormous resources, and yet very, very poor people without access to even the very resources that we have, embedded in our soils. Nigeria produces 2 million barrels of oil a day. Nigeria alone. So it is difficult to understand why prices of petroleum products just keep shooting through the skies, and why on many occasions we've seen very long queues for petrol in Nigeria. The point is simply that, yes, Nigeria produces 2 million barrels of oil a day. But who owns the oil that Nigeria produces? Shell, Total, and so on. You understand? So the Nigerian people themselves do not own their oil. What is worse, Nigeria, which has half the population of West Africa, 230 million people. If you take Ghana, Ghana has a population of just about 31 million people. Nigeria has half the total population of the whole of West Africa, and actually produces 2 million barrels of oil a day. Nigeria until recently had no refinery. I mean, that's mind-boggling. Ghana established a refinery even when it didn't have, even when it was not exploiting oil. You understand? So all of Nigeria's oil was taken out of the country for refining. And Nigeria bought finished products. Now, because of this arrangement, previous Nigerian governments actually put some subsidies on the product so that it can be affordable by the Nigerian people. The new president, who is not promising to be different from any of the presidents they have had in the last 10, 20, 30 years, on the day of his inauguration, unbelievable, he didn't even want a honeymoon. The day of his inauguration, decided that these subsidies should be withdrawn. And this is the president whose legitimacy is being contested in the court. So can you believe what he's going to do if he's confirmed as president? Now that he hasn't even been confirmed. And so look at what he's doing. I read the statement which was issued by the Nigerian Labour Congress, and it was biting. The Nigerian Labour Congress is rightfully so very angry at the measures that the president has taken. It says, by his insensitive decision, President Tinubu on his inauguration day brought tears and sorrow to millions of Nigerians instead of hope. He equally devalued the quality of their lives by over 300% and counting. And so this is the Nigerian Labour Congress, the biggest trade union movement in Nigeria. You understand? It does appear that Tinubu is not going to have a smooth ride in this presidency if this is the way he's going to go. The Nigerian people have suffered enough. They've suffered enough, you know. And the least they can expect any new president or any new government to do is to provide them with some relief. If you go to northeastern Nigeria, you have the Boko Haram insurgency wreaking havoc, total havoc. You understand? You go to the Niger Delta area, you have the low-intensity civil war, you know, which is also wreaking substantial havoc. Now you go to the eastern part of Nigeria, and you have the secessionist movement, and so on. You know, now with all of this instability, if you're going to worsen the economic plight of the Nigerian people, then you're calling for real trouble. And I think that it is time for Tinubu to wake up and stop behaving like all his other colleagues in ECOWAS and in the AU have been behaving over the years. They make promises. As soon as you vote for them, they forget the promises. As soon as you finish voting for them, you don't matter again. The people who matter are the directors of World Bank and IMF sitting in Washington. That's our headache. That's our problem. You understand? I think maybe next time we should directly vote for IMF and World Bank and forget these pretenders.
Just come and rule us.
They should just come and rule us. It will be better than having these pretenders, these leadership pretenders, these people who pretend that we are voting for them and that they are going to act in our interest. They themselves have masters, and their masters are in Washington. Why don't we vote for their masters directly? It's unbelievable what these African leaders do to themselves, their countries, and everybody else. Can you believe that the AU refused an application by Haiti for membership? Haiti, the first black republic in the world. They refused an application by Haiti for membership. And were jumping over themselves to allow Israel to come and sit in their meetings.
Yeah.
These our leaders, African leaders. My goodness, Africa, we have some leaders. What is this?
All right. Thank you very much, Koku Headman. Let's proceed to our next topic. A very interesting topic, if you ask me. So, in a landmark ruling, the Supreme Court, the country's apex court, they have ruled that it was unconstitutional for the President, His Excellency Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, to ask the former Auditor General, Mr. Daniel Domilovo, to proceed on a 169-day accumulated leave. Remember, in 2020, on the 29th of June, to be exact, the President actually wrote a letter to the Auditor General asking him to proceed on leave. Some civil society organizations, a section of the Ghanaian populace, were not happy about that. The issue was taken to court. Now, 2.5 years later, the court have actually come to rule that yes, it was an unconstitutional decision that the President took at the time. Elvis will share his thought with us on this particular development. Is it a ruling he expected?
Well, we did not need to wait for a ruling to understand that, first of all, everything around, what's his name?
Domilovo's dismissal?
Domilovo's dismissal was extremely too partisanship, extremely too political, and it amounted to, a fundamental breach in administrative law. It constituted a practical disrespect for the authority of state institutions. It was a monumental dehydration of the confidence the Constitution have reposed in state, frameworks that had equal constitutional powers to play a role of checks and balances to ensure the judicious utilization and deployment of national resources. And our Public Finance Management Act have made it clear that in all matters involving the utilization and expenditure of public finances shall be a matter subject to the purviews of the, Auditor General, who, as it were, has mandate to scrutinize to be sure that the expenditure is in accordance with the provisions of law and is deployed for appropriate national policies that are intended to see to the attainment of our aspiration, economically and socially speaking, as a country. So for any politician to hide under the excessive constitutional executive powers as president or as presidency or as government to undermine the operationalization, or if you like it, the functional integrity of state institutions, can only amount to nothing but political witch hunting. What did Domlevo do? Domlevo only complied with his constitutional mandate, as I have spelled out. Empowered upon him, so speaking, by legislation. And we have parliament, but when it comes to legislation, we have supremacy of parliamentary legislature. So he did not act in a manner that was ultra vires, as though he went outside his powers. He did not also abuse the mandate granted him by law. He did what the law actually expected of him to do. And that became an offense to people in government who have mastered the art of corruption to the extent that anybody who puts an eagle eye on them is made an enemy. These were the basis for Domlevo's removal. Nothing else. There is no reasonable basis. The presidency cannot explain one technical grounds for asking Domlevo to proceed on leave at the time we asked him to do so, when there were no basis for that. In any event, let us be minded to understand that the president, at the time he asked Domlevo to proceed on leave, could have only done so on one condition, on the condition that Domlevo was indicted for abuse of office or a certain malpractice of a certain nature. Then you can ask him to proceed on some sort of leave, or to set aside, to allow for adequate investigation to be carried away. Now, let us go to a bit of labor law. In any event, when you ask someone to proceed on leave, or if a person so proceed on leave, does that amount to a vacation of office or dismissal? Does it amount? No. It means that the person is still seated with the rights and privileges of his office. So it is administratively wrong, and it defies corporate logic that you make a new appointment into an office that has a bearer who is on leave, as it were, a temporal break, with expectation that all else standing equal should be seen returning. Are we understanding this? So for us to have asked him to proceed on leave wrongly and wrongfully, and proceeded to make an appointment of someone who was in acting capacity, was in total error of law and logic. So I was not waiting for any ruling for Ghanaians to understand that Domlevo was actually victimized. He had his fair share of the vindictiveness of some elements in a corrupt government, to proceed on home and to proceed to sit at home. Basically, it was hatred. Let me put it in simple words. It was hatred, and that is the problem we have in this country. Anytime you see a speaker of truth, he becomes a public enemy. You understand? And these people will come after you and influence the rest of Ghana to hate you. And that is where I have a problem with society. People are recruited. Hatred have now become a heritage for inheritance. You can just hate someone because another person says he hates him. And that is the problem. Domilevo was simply a major barrier, a major hindrance to, you know, the money-making agenda of some individuals. Because I'm here to understand. One factual basis, the president at the Jubilee House is a lawyer. And so he understands, you know, fair hearing. He understands the tenets of rule of law. He understands the elementary principles of justice. Why did they not subject Domilevo to those? So if that didn't happen, then clearly there was an agenda you and I will still need to know. But I can tell you for a fact that the man was witch-handed. Now, to the Supreme Court, in an era where the Supreme Court have suffered a public ridicule and an extreme deflation of the confidence we had reposed over the years in it by a consistent ruling of, you know, unanimous 7-0. It matters that sometimes the cause of public opinion have this speculation that at least there should have been, you know, some balance. And I'm choosing my words carefully now, okay? Before I join Pesa White in you know, these NDC brothers of mine, as a result of desperation for power, they can say things sometimes. Before I join my respected professor, Pesa White, in going to apologize and sweat and the AC. But the reality is that there are some cases, sometimes we think that we can positively critique the decision and the verdicts of the Supreme Court when we think that certain aspects of the matter should suffer a defeat. Yet you see that it does appear, you know, that the greater bit of our speculation have got to do with the fact that these rulings doesn't so much seem to be technical. We just hide under the law sometimes to try to please government. Now, with this ruling, the Supreme Court must have only sought to do the opposite of what it has been reputed for in the past days, as a way of actually rebuilding and reconstructing a tarnished public reputation. That is my suspicion. Right. And this could have been the only best case with which to use for such maintenance. You know why? Because the judgment in reality means it holds no substantial effect on the action, okay, or that preceded the ruling. Are you getting it? This is not going to have Domilevo back in office anyway. I don't know if you're reading it from the sense of law. He is not going to have him back. The worst that can happen is for him to be paid salaries for the period he was made to be home wrongly and wrongfully. That is a negligible, okay, economic translation for the politicians. They don't mind losing any money to him. In any event, these are monies from the taxpayer. The most important thing is that he is out and their nefarious agenda that became the motivation for his removal have been actualized. Are you getting it? So a sick bird has been slain for a lazy god. Let me put it that way. If you understand tradition, when you have to sacrifice, if you go to uncle's home where tradition stands, if you have to sacrifice, you know, to appease gods, in a situation where you think that a particular god over the years have been abused and it has lost its spiritual potency to strike when things are going wrong, any sick fowl you slaughter on it makes no difference. It would, whether the fowl agrees to the chants or not. Uncle, am I correct? Traditionally, you have only killed a sick bird, a sick fowl to a spiritually impotent god. It will have no effect and no ramifications. That is what has happened. I believe, my conviction is that a sick fowl has been sacrificed to an impotent god. So yes, I don't even know why this is a topic for us to discuss. I don't know. I don't know what topics you have, but I believe we could have spoken about important things. We can only wish our judicial system well.
Right. Honorable Auditor.
Yeah, I agree with my brother
anything
on
against
some
government,
subjects
they agree with
or some points that he made, and I'll come to that. But you see, there's a systematic bastardization of state institutions that have been insulated by the Constitution, especially under this government, and they seem not to learn any lesson at all from their forebearers. We're in this country under President Akufo-Addo, under President Kufuor. I remember a senior officer of immigrations, Hodari Okai, was unlawfully yanked from office. He sought legal redress. The court ruled in his favor. What happened? The then Minister for Information, Asamoah Boateng, came and held a press conference and told the whole world that they were not going to abide by the court ruling and they were not going to reinstate him, and they did not. These are people who claim to be what? Bearers of the rule of law and of its practice and so on. Look at Apollo 568. That happened during Buzia's regime from 1969 to 72. What happened? 568 public officers were equally dismissed unlawfully. The case was sent to court. They ruled against the government. And when it happened, Buzia said that he was no court is above him. They are reenacting what happened those days up to today. We reenact distance and we create confusion in our state institution, eroding them of their independence. Not just as an institution, but even their responsibility to the people of this government. What happened to the Bank of Ghana? A Bank of Ghana that is clearly that you cannot willy-nilly remove the governor of the Bank of Ghana. When President Akufo-Addo took over, he changed the governor of the Bank of Ghana and paid huge sums to him for that change. That is willfully causing financial loss to the taxpayer. You intentionally, you knew, and you did it. You know it's going to cost the taxpayer much. But you did it because you said you cannot work with him. And the reasons why you couldn't work with the Bank of Ghana at the time you came and met are now becoming clear. Because the governor of the Bank of Ghana is now abusing the law that established it. And they are printing money over 70 billion. You remember one time I was on this your program, and I initially talked about the Bank of Ghana printing money, and then our friend, the lady, Ellen Darko, and then our Muslim doctor, they took me on. They said they are not printing money. Have you seen it has come to pass? They asked at that time when I was talking, if they had listened to me, they wouldn't have printed 70 billion. Come to your electoral commission. What didn't they do to yank Charlotte herself from office? And after they removed Charlotte, I said, what happened? They said that there were a conveyor belt. And immediately after that conveyor belt, other petitions were sent to the president. The conveyor belt got cut off. No one could repair it up to date. Any petition that was, because they had satisfied what they had planned. It's a well-rehearsed agenda by the Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo to come into office to remove people who perceive to be either belonging to a political party they do not want or are perceiving as of corruption. What is the crime of Domlovo? Domlovo's crime was to investigate Crow and Associate that was linked to senior minister Osafo Mafo. That was his crime. And look at even afterwards what happened. They told him that he has to go on leave for about, initially the leave was about 3 months. When he complained, they increased it to 6 months. Can you imagine these people? When he came back, the one wanted to, they said, you are a Togolese. When he wanted to, you know what they did to him? They went and changed his locks, the locks to his office. How can you treat a Ghanaian disdainfully like this? But let's thank CDD. It was CDD that sent the case to court. You understand? Now, like my brother said, justice delayed is justice denied. This is a very clear case of justice delayed and justice denied. What is the import of this ruling? What does the Supreme Court want to tell us to do with this ruling? Very quote-unquote cases that are not of emergency nature have come before you. You quickly rule on them because, you see, the court in this case should be seen as a promoter of civil rights and a kind of upholding the tenets of the Constitution by their ruling. If the ruling that has come, we cannot do anything about it. And in it, they even stated that they cannot injunct the current, Attorney General. In any case, look at Ayone, my brother. if Akufo-Addo indeed was an anti-corrupt fighter and he hates corruption, like he has been repackaged and we are told, I've not known him from childhood, and everything about corruption, you see, there people, oh, yeah, corruption, they have found Akufo-Addo, and you get someone like Domlovo, who is helping you to fight the corruption you say you are fighting. Why would you use everything? There are some officers who should be removed now, but the presidency is protecting them. And I'll be coming to that. The Auditor General report tells us that over 52 billion Ghana cedis, taxpayers' money, has been misappropriated, squandered, and stolen in broad daylight under President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo. What happened to the COVID fund? Were you removing the Domlovo because you wanted to create a chance, open the floodgates for stealing, corruption, and destruction, which we have seen? You can't go beyond, because the removal of Domlovo has shown that this is what is happening. Look at the amount of energy, the amount of time that we had to talk before the COVID funds were audited. Even we disagree, because the special drawing rights of which they took the $1 billion, they had not included the COVID expenditure, what has happened to it. Now, this court ruling has come. The Supreme Court must be seen to be protecting the people of this country than to be doing rules that will see the whims and caprices of political appointees in this country. We are teachers of political science. What do we tell our students about what is happening under our constitution and so on? What do? You don't do that and turn around to blame anyone. What have the Supreme Court to? This was a case that was within limit, within time, that your ruling would have helped. It would have held a sway. Look at the damage you did to an individual and to the people of this country, because someone attempted to investigate an alleged corruption, including what you call a crony associate that is linked to President Akufo-Addo's one of his appointees. If indeed you want to fight corruption, every government that wants to fight corruption should pray to have an attorney general like Domlovo. And Domlovo simply was enforcing the law that established the Auditor General by surcharging and disallowance. He will surcharge you because no Attorney General has ever practicalized that aspect of the act establishing the Attorney General and his functions. The Auditor General and his function. So he was simply enforcing that aspect of surcharging and disallowance. And what did we see? The anti-corruption gurus who were here talking plenty and holding conferences, Occupy Ghana and whatnot, is and Co all have gone mute. They should speak up against the bad governance under this rotten government that we've been treated with. How can we vote people into power? You can't even talk. You can't do your as we talked this morning, officers of directors of electoral commission have been asked to submit their CVs to the office of the president. For what purposes, my brother? They should leave the institutions the way they came and met them. You want to destroy them, and when you destroy them and a new government comes and we are trying to do the right thing, they will tell you to be witch hunting. In any case, we are aware that a PR of electoral commission, immediately after the Boch election, which this lady also announced 5 times, you immediately made her an ambassador out of this country. When you keep shredding our institutions politically, what are we going to live with? Now the Supreme Court is the way we can run. Now we don't even trust the Supreme Court. By most of the surveys that have been conducted by civil society organizations, wanting to know the confidence level of the people in our judicial services, is almost next to nothing. It's embarrassing. In fact, it permeates down to even businesses, international business people who want to establish business here. If they find that your judicial system is fraught with a lot of inconsistencies, with a lot of cases that they cannot, no one would want to come and invest in this country. It's a big lesson, and I think that when we come to power and we are correcting the mistakes, people should not see us as if we are witch hunting in other fellow. There's no way, and I don't think, yesterday I was asking, no, the issue has even been extended to other public directors. Yesterday I was asking a senior colleague, he taught me in school, he's in one of that they call all and said they should submit their CVs to the officer. And he got up and asked why. They said they can't tell. The presidency has requested that they should bring their CVs. How do you do that? How do you do that? Look at appointments, everything buzz under this guy. It's so annoying and irritating when you get up and you get these things that you want to talk about.
Thank you very much, Honorable Team. Comrade Pratt.
Well, I think right from the very beginning, all of us knew that the government was acting ultra-vires. All of us knew that the government had no authority under the Constitution or any other law to remove Mr. Domelevo from office in the manner that the government did. The Supreme Court has only confirmed what all the civil society organizations said, what all the opposition political parties said, and what we all said as journalists at the time. The point is, government has acted. The point is, Mr. Domelevo has been removed. The point is that the investigations he was carrying on could not be concluded. And the point is, there's a new Auditor General in the chair. And one of the things that really baffled many observers was simply the fact that the person they were bringing in to do Mr. Domelevo's duties appeared to be older than Mr. Domelevo, who was being removed on account of his age. I mean, this circus ought to stop. This circus ought to stop. The Constitution is clear. Even secondary school students can read the Constitution and understand. Now you have presidents, you have ministers, all of them. Some of them very highly educated, some of them lawyers and so on, and they pretend that they cannot understand the Constitution. It's amazing, you know. Finally, the Supreme Court has taken a decision. I hear there's another one, still with unanimous decisions, still unanimous, but decision that some of us feel comfortable with, you know. So that's all. There's nothing more to say.
Right.
Bless. Because, when they did that, Domelevo said drew the attention to the law. And the response from the Flats House, that he has little understanding of the law.
Right. We have just about 13 minutes more, then we close. We can use at least some 10 minutes, 3 minutes each to talk about our next topic. Memo of Presidency demanding CV of EC directors allegedly leaks. This story can be found on page 9 of the Inside newspaper. You can grab a copy of today's edition at any newspaper stand for just 4 Ghana cedis, or visit the insidenewsonline.com. You can read this particular story there. But briefly, I'll take your thoughts on this, Honorable Awuntim. I think you touched briefly on it.
Touch on it, but because there's no time, we would have gone into the details. Yeah. And that is what I said. Even institutions of state like the Bank of Ghana, look at the way the president removed the governor of the Bank of Ghana. How can we keep doing that? The EC, insulated by the Constitution. These are not established by us of Parliament. These are independent institutions. The Electoral Commission is not established by an act of Parliament. It's a whole provision under the 1992 Constitution. And what would a president need CVs for? To do what with them? Is it to intimidate them? Do you have an agenda we don't know? Is it that elections are getting there, you want to intimidate them? Already you've choked the Electoral Commission with MPP card-bearing members. That is a huge issue. We've discussed it over and over. You are now doing, is it to intimidate the directors there? You see, when I saw it, these days I'm very cautious because most of the issues, when they appear on social media, I don't trust. When I saw this, I said, how can this be true? And I saw it on one of our platforms, and one of our guys even said, oh, this is a fake news. Then the guy who posted said, why do you associate fake news to me? Anytime I post anything on this thing, it comes to pass. So what I did was that I have a friend with a letter coming, so I sent the letter to him and said, can you confirm this? He said, yeah, it hasn't counted, but the signature is really the one who signed. And you know what? This guy is pending, what do you call it, retirement. He's pending leave. Is it leave? The leave that you go before retirement. The guy who signed this letter. So it will not surprise me if at the end of the day they are going to put the blame, because the guy is already going on retirement. Leave before retirement. You understand? Because the presidency has acted badly. No government, I cannot remember any government that requested, because public service is there. Their CVs are already there. Requesting them to do what at least they say. Some of them would have worked with this institution for the past 2 decades 20 years, 30 years, and so on. What do you need it for? If it is anything, they should let us know. But to come under the back door and to do this to public servants and civil servants is serious matter. Like I told you yesterday, I met a former teacher of mine who is one of the directors. He told me that I showed him this and that. Oh, team, it's not only the electoral commission. If you call them. But one thing we are so much worried about the electoral commission is the critical role of the electoral commission. The independence of the electoral commission must not be tempered with, because the consequences are dire. The consequences there, if we lose confidence in the electoral commission, look, it's not going to be easy for this country. And I don't want to go into history, what has happened, and the issues that anything that has to do with elections within this part of the world has gone haywire, and some countries are still suffering from that issue. So the presidency must be careful. They should rather be seen to be doing things that will enhance the peace and tranquility that we are enjoying. That was why I was not happy when the president went to Kumawu and said that he was going to hand over to an MPP government. It doesn't lie in Nanado's mouth to tell us whom he would hand over to. He should rather be telling us that as a president, I am going to ensure that these elections are conducted in a free and fair manner. I'm going to put in all the necessary resources, the necessary machinery to ensure that there's no insecurity and that people will not die like they died when I was in power 4 years ago in Techiman South. 8 people died needlessly because you want to win elections. Anything that will be done to frustrate the current state of the electoral commission, we're already tired with even the changes there, and so on. So for me, the president should rather be seen to be implementing policies, to be engendering peace and tranquility, to ensure that fairness is given to each political party. Fairness is given. It's a multi-party system. It's not a two-party system. Right. That is what I want to put.
Right. Elvis.
Yes, I wanted to shelve politics, active partisan politics for a while, but I think I need to intensify it. I want to be a road minister. Yes, the latest, most beautiful road in the country is the Enyinam to Achem Kwabing Road. I'm told the minister for road is from that place. Me, I want to be a road minister. For just 2 weeks.
When you finish your hometown.
When I finish my hometown road, I'm out. At least, Nadoli Tangas here, Cherpon through to Sankana and Namville area. And then I can bring to Sandema where he promised me a woman, you know. Yes, just as Daddy said, 10 working days will be good. So the latest new road in Ghana is the Enyinam Achem Kwabing Road. Dual lane, dual carriage, good lightning system. Oh my goodness. So that we are asking for CVs of people. For what? What did they say is the reason for? So these people were not scrutinized before being employed? The employer erred in employing them, or what? What is the material gain and benefit to the state in asking for CVs of people who have worked, some of whom are about proceeding on retirement? Okay, I am not against it in any way if it's going to bring a structural formation that will actually yield out presidency. No, hold on. I'm not against it if it will bring structural formation that will, as it were, increase productivity. But you know where we must collect CVs first in this country is the presidency. The presidency is where we have presidential staffers who are not fit, some of whom, let me be fair, some of whom are not fit at all to be anywhere closer to decision making. We have packed them there. Did we look at their CVs? A lot of them arrive there depending on whose girlfriend you are, or whom your uncle is, okay, or whom your paymaster is. Let us sack the side chicks from the presidency first. Let us see their CVs first. They don't do anything. Some of them are just christened, cameraman, research assistant. They don't know anything about research. They've never held a digital camera. Yet we are paying them. Why don't we take their CVs to ensure some relevant job alignment at the presidency before we ask for CVs from people who have had their jobs through competitive interviews and have served the country over years? You see, we are too confused at this point, but it's understandable. He whom the gods wants to kill, they first make mad. You just go about doing things. As for the president's comment in Kwahu, who, of course, he's made this comment over the period in many platforms that he's going to hand over to an MPP president. I don't know why the NDC is too worried about it. Maybe it is a statement of faith, except to say that as the number one statesman, he must exercise caution in that desire. Reason being that it may, if it is overly emphasized, it may suggest that any other party that wins elections, he will not be comfortable handing over to them. And that can be a national security consideration. I don't want to call it a threat now, but that can be a national security consideration where it is overly emphasized and psychologically tune some sections of the public to want to think that there is a preponderance of deliberate attempts to, manipulate elections in the favor of the NPP.
Right.
So that psychological conditioning may not augur well for a declaration that may otherwise not be in favor of the NPP. Right. So in the spirit of diplomacy and leadership, the circles within which this is said and the choice of words should not be emphatic. You should express it as a wish, a prayer, and a desire. But to be emphatic that I am handing over to the next government may not be security-wise an intelligent tangent to want to peddle.
Right.
But we are firing on all cylinders, and I think that we should slow down a bit, correct the system, reinstill national confidence, then we can win the next election. Because the NDC have not suggested, in the midst of all the misbehavior of the NPP government, the NDC are not projecting themselves as any meaningful alternative. They are on a talking spree, and they are always like that, and we are not even noticing what they will bring on board. Right. I pray that they put people like my uncle in the forefront of things. He could have been a better flag bearer, I'm telling you, but politics and these issues. Well, let's pray. It is
right. Right. Thank you so much, Elvis. Comrade Kwesi Pratt would round off the conversation for us with his thoughts on this particular subject matter.
This is a very strange request. Strange to the extent that before anybody is employed, even at lower levels, your CV is required. And the CV is updated from time to time. So this happens to be a very strange request, especially when it is coming from the Deputy Chief of Staff with responsibility for operations. And you and I know what operations mean in a political setup, you understand? So what kind of operations are they conducting which requires the CVs of senior personnel of the Electoral Commission and maybe of the National Commission on Civic Education and Shraj and so on? What kind of operations are they conducting? I think this has raised an alarm, and the earlier the letter is withdrawn, the better it will be for everybody. One of my surprises is also that the Electoral Commission itself did not kick against it. One would have expected the Electoral Commission to insist on its independence as it has done in all other cases. In this particular case, because the letter is coming from the Presidency, the Electoral Commission just acquiesced and sent an ultimatum, to senior personnel to bring their CVs within 6 hours. Very strange behavior.
Within 6 hours.
Yeah. But I'm hoping that we will see the bottom of this matter.
Right, our time is up. We need to leave. Thank you so much, Comrade Kwesi Pratt. Thank you, Honorable Awantirim. Thank you, Elvis Bota. But let me see if I can read a couple of messages before we go. And, okay, trying to get some of the messages that you've sent to me. Okay, I'll start with this one, which says that, bless. I wonder why people still doubt the words of Mr. Martin Amidu, who knows the president in and out. He described him as the mother serpent of corruption. The Domilovo case is a locus classicus case that shows the intent of the president to discharge any one of his duties if the said person stands his ways of amassing taxpayers' money. The NPP government is on the path of an economic recovery program that will sustain their children's children. God save Ghana. Ghanaians are cowards. You allow Akufo-Addo to collect the CVs of public servants and manipulate the system, and we will come and sing hymns of lamentations. Be citizens, not spectators. This one came from Edward. Johnny Kujo says, good morning, bless. Sacking Domiovo was basically because of the prosecution of the senior minister and also an agenda to put in place the current auditor general to do the bidding for them. Sir John says, is the president of Umofia telling Ghanaians he knew nothing about the NPP boys he appointed to the Electoral Commission and now requests for their CVs? Such inconsistency cannot be allowed to continue to lead Ghana after 2024. The second independence of Ghana is reloading. Special regards to Honorable Kingsley Owusu Newman, incoming member of parliament for Fantiakwa South constituency. Thank you so much. Johnny Kujo says, good morning, bless. Sacking Domlovo was because of the prosecution of the senior minister. I think I've already done this message. Don't deceive yourself. The so-called president doesn't understand anything. This came from Nina. Good morning, Pan-African TV. I always feel proud as a youth when I hear Elvis speaking, watching live from Kajaji in the Sene East District. Okay. Good morning, my great brothers. Kindly remember, fake leadership in Africa has nothing to offer the good people of our continent. Okay. Shamaba says, Akufo-Addo, the Flagstaff House billionaire, MPP, never again. Finally, I'll do this one. Good morning to you all. I think Nigeria has also gotten their own Akufo-Addo, and I believe Nigeria would begin to miss former President Buhari. Okay. I have a couple of messages from WhatsApp. I'll just do two, and then we call it a morning. Good morning, bless. Why is it that only MPP see nothing wrong with the birth certificate judgment? Well, question for the gods. My name is Mesan from Garo. Garo district has been invaded with Fulanis and other tribes from Burkina Faso. There is so much fear in Garo. They have taken over our forests and some farmlands in Kugri. Our leaders are quiet about it. Please talk for us. Good morning, bless. The president and the NPP are doing what they are doing now, bearing in mind the agenda that they have in implementing the Ejapade document. Stephen Penn from WA. Good morning, Stephen Penn. I trust you are in fine fettle. Good morning, bless. Why? Okay, apologies. I understand your frustration. Good morning, bless, and your panelists. I'm suspecting Tinubu's vacation to the United Kingdom was a plan of the Western powers to have him do what he did, because the presence of the Dangote's refinery is a threat to their economies, especially in the oil market. They are scared the exploitation of Africa is coming to an end, so I'm not surprised at all. I'm Ameshi Dixon from Ho. Thank you so much for your time this morning, and to my able panelists for joining us to discuss these topics. And to you at home, those of you who send messages, I'm extremely grateful. The messages I'm unable to read. Hopefully tomorrow you send, I'll try my best to read all of them. Thank you. Do have a pleasant morning. Bye-bye.